The sound of my husband's laughter echoed from our bedroom as I stood frozen in the hallway, Christmas gifts scattered at my feet. But it wasn't my laughter joining his. It was hers. Folake's voice, my own sister's voice, moaning my husband's name like a prayer on this holy night. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. My hands trembled as I pushed open the bedroom door. There they were, Adebayo, my husband of 12 years, and Folake, my younger sister whom I'd raised after our parents died. The silk sheets I'd bought for Christmas morning were tangled around their naked bodies, and the family photo of us with our son Tayo sat watching from the nightstand like a silent witness to this domestic betrayal. Kemi. Adebayo scrambled to cover himself, but it was too late. The image was burned into my memory forever. My sister's head on my pillow, her wedding ring glinting in the lamplight next to mine. "Sister, please," Folake started, but I held up my hand. "In my bed. On Christmas Eve." My voice came out steady, though my world was crumbling. "While our disabled son sleeps in the next room. I am Kemi Adebayo, 42 years old, and until this moment, I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I'd built our life in this 3-bedroom house in Victoria Island, Lagos, working double shifts as a nurse while Adebayo established his construction company. Our son Tayo, born with cerebral palsy 8 years ago, needed constant care that insurance barely covered. I sacrificed everything. My dreams, my body, my peace, for this family. And this is how they repaid me. Kemi, let me explain. Adebayo stood, reaching for his trousers. Explain what? How long you've been sleeping with my sister? How long you've been lying to me? I stepped into the room, my nursing shoes silent on the marble floor. How long you've been planning this? Folake finally found her voice, wrapping the sheet around herself. It just happened, Kemi. We didn't mean for. Don't. I cut her off. Don't you dare make this sound accidental. You're wearing a negligee I've never seen before. This was planned. The infidelity in marriage I could maybe forgive. People fall out of love. But with my own sister? The girl I fed, clothed, and sent through university? The woman who held Tayo during his seizures and called me her hero? This was emotional manipulation at its cruelest. Mommy. Tayo's voice called from his room, weak and confused. Why are you shouting? My heart shattered. Even in sleep, my son could sense the destruction of our family. I turned to face my cheating spouse and his mistress, my own flesh and blood. Pack your things, Folake. Get out of my house. Kemi, be reasonable. Adebayo stepped toward me. Reasonable. I laughed, a sound hollow and broken. You want reasonable? Here's reasonable. I want both of you out. Tonight. This is my house too, Adebayo said, his voice hardening. My name is on the deed. And my money paid for it. My night shifts, my overtime, my sacrificed sleep while you built your little empire. I grabbed Folake's clothes from the floor and threw them at her. Get dressed. Both of you. You can't just. Folake started. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Let me document this beautiful Christmas Eve scene for the courts. I'm sure Judge Okafor will love seeing how my husband and sister spent the holiday. Adebayo's face went pale. His construction contracts with the Lagos state government could be jeopardized by a messy divorce scandal. Public disgrace was something he couldn't afford. Kemi, put the phone down. We can discuss this like adults. Adults don't destroy families on Christmas Eve. I kept recording as they scrambled to dress. Adults don't betray the people who sacrificed everything for them. Mommy. Tayo's cry grew more urgent, and I heard the telltale sound of his wheelchair moving across the floor. I rushed to his room, closing the door behind me. My 8-year-old son sat in his wheelchair, tears streaming down his face. His cerebral palsy made emotional regulation difficult, and the shouting had triggered his anxiety. "What's happening, Mommy? Why is Auntie Folake here so late? How do you explain betrayal to a child? How do you tell your disabled son that the people he loves most just destroyed his world? There's been a change of plans, baby. We might be going on a little trip. But it's Christmas Eve. Santa won't find us." I knelt beside his wheelchair, holding his small hands. "Santa will find us anywhere, okay? Mommy promises." A crash came from the living room, followed by Adebayo's voice. I said leave it. I peered out to see Folake grabbing items from under our Christmas tree. Expensive gifts that I now realized were never meant for me or Teo. She'd been planning this betrayal, using our family home as her personal shopping storage. "Take only what you came with," I called out, stepping back into the hallway with my phone still recording. "These are mine," Folake said defiantly, clutching a Hermes bag I'd never seen before. "Nothing in this house is yours. You're a guest who overstayed her welcome." Adebayo finished buttoning his shirt and grabbed his car keys. "I'll be back tomorrow to settle this properly. Will you now?" I smiled, but it felt like ice. "We'll see about that." They moved toward the door, and I followed, still recording. Folake paused at the threshold, tears in her eyes. "Kemi, I'm sorry. I never wanted." "You never wanted to get caught," I finished. "There's a difference." The door closed behind them, and I stood in the silence of my destroyed home. Christmas decorations mocked me from every corner. The tree we decorated together, the stockings with our names, the family photos documenting 12 years of lies. But as I looked at those photos, something else stirred in my chest besides heartbreak. Something harder. Something that tasted like justice. I walked to Adebayo's home office and sat at his computer. His password was still Teyo's birthday, another knife in my heart. But it also gave me access to everything. His business accounts, his email, his contracts. And there, in his sent folder, I found messages that made my blood run cold. Messages to Folake dating back 8 months. Messages about leaving Kemi and starting fresh. Messages about liquidating assets and transferring funds. This wasn't just infidelity in marriage. This was a calculated plan to destroy me financially and steal my son's future. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated a nurse who'd worked in Lagos hospitals for 20 years. A woman who'd seen every kind of human cruelty and learned to document everything. A mother who'd fight heaven and hell for her disabled child. As I began forwarding emails to my personal account, Teo wheeled into the office. "Mommy, I'm scared. Where did Daddy and Auntie go?" I pulled him close, breathing in his sweet scent. "They went away, baby. But Mommy's going to make sure they never hurt us again." "Are we still having Christmas tomorrow?" I looked at my son's hopeful face and made a promise that would change everything. "We're going to have the best Christmas ever. But first, Mommy has some work to do." What I discovered in those emails would either destroy us completely or give us the weapon we needed for the fight of our lives. And as I scrolled through message after message of their betrayal, I realized this African marriage drama was just beginning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. Christmas morning arrived grey and cheerless, matching the hollow ache in my chest. Teo had slept fitfully, asking twice during the night when Daddy would come home. I'd held him close, whispering lies about business trips while my mind raced through the evidence I discovered. The emails painted a picture more devastating than I'd imagined. Adebayo and Folake hadn't just been having an affair, they'd been systematically planning to leave me with nothing. Bank statements showed money disappearing from our joint accounts into offshore holdings. Business contracts had been restructured to remove my name from properties I'd helped finance. But the cruelest revelation was in a message dated just 2 weeks ago. Don't worry about Kemi or the boy. We'll make sure they're taken care of, but they can't hold us back forever. Taeyo's medical expenses are bleeding us dry anyway. They wanted to abandon my disabled son. I was printing evidence when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Mrs. Adebayo? An unfamiliar woman's voice. Nervous. My name is Grace Okonkwo. I'm calling about your husband. My grip tightened on the phone. What about him? I think we need to talk. Are you free today? Something in her tone made my pulse quicken. Who are you? I'm Adebayo's. I was his. This is difficult to explain over the phone. But I saw him last night with another woman, and I think you should know the truth. Another woman. My mind reeled. Can you come here? Victoria Island, off Omadou Bello Way. I know the address. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up, staring at the phone. If this Grace person was telling the truth, then Folake wasn't Adebayo's only betrayal. The web of lies was larger than I'd imagined. Taeyo wheeled into the kitchen, still in his Christmas pajamas. Mommy, can we open presents now? I looked at the few wrapped gifts under our tree, things I'd bought weeks ago when I still believed in our family. Of course, baby. Let's see what Santa brought. He tore into his presents with the pure joy only children possess, exclaiming over a new tablet and some adaptive toys. His happiness was a small light in my darkness, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Where's Daddy's present? Taeyo asked, looking around. Daddy had to go handle some business today. He'll open his presents later. The doorbell rang before Taeyo could ask more questions. Through the peephole, I saw an elegant woman in her 30s, wearing traditional Ankara fabric mixed with modern accessories. Her face was puffy from crying. I opened the door. Grace. She nodded. Mrs. Adebayo. I'm so sorry to bother you on Christmas. I led her to the living room, grateful that Taeyo was absorbed in his new tablet. Grace sat on the edge of my sofa, clutching a manila envelope. How do you know my husband? Grace's eyes filled with tears. We've been involved for 2 years. He told me he was divorced, that you'd left him because of your son's condition. She looked toward Taeyo with shame. I believed him. He said you couldn't handle the stress of a disabled child. The breath left my lungs. 2 years. While I'd been working double shifts to pay for Taeyo's therapy, Adebayo had been lying to another woman, using our son's disability as an excuse for his cheating spouse behavior. What changed? I managed to ask. Yesterday, I went to surprise him at what I thought was his apartment. I had a key. She opened the envelope and pulled out photographs. I saw him with the other woman. Your sister, I think? They were loading suitcases into his car. I took the photos with shaking hands. There they were, Adebayo and Folake in an apartment I'd never seen, embracing like lovers planning a future. The timestamps showed Christmas Eve, just hours before I'd caught them in my bed. When I confronted him, Grace continued. He admitted everything. Said he was leaving you and taking half of everything. But Mrs. Adebayo, there's more. She pulled out a folder. I work for Standard Bank. When Adebayo applied for a loan 6 months ago, using your house as collateral, I processed the paperwork. I didn't know then that you weren't aware of it. My heart stopped. What loan? 5 million naira. The money went into an account I now realize belonged to your sister. Grace's voice was barely a whisper. Mrs. Adebayo, they've mortgaged your home. If they don't make payments, you'll lose everything. The room spun around me. Not only had they betrayed me emotionally, they'd stolen my son's security. The house where Taeyo received his physical therapy, close to his doctors and his special school, they'd put it all at risk. Why are you telling me this? Grace wiped her eyes. Because I fell in love with a lie. And because when I saw your son's medical equipment in the photos, I realized what kind of monsters they really are. She stood to leave. I've copied all the financial documents I could access legally. It's all in there. After she left, I sat in my living room surrounded by evidence of the most elaborate betrayal I could imagine. My husband hadn't just strayed, he'd orchestrated a complete destruction of our family's future. And my sister, the girl I'd raised as my own daughter, had helped him do it. Mommy. Teo wheeled over, concerned by my silence. Are you crying? I wiped my eyes quickly. Just happy tears, baby. Mommy's just thinking about how much she loves you. I love you too. When is Daddy coming home? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Adebayo, coming by at 3 p.m. to collect my things. Have divorce papers ready to sign. This doesn't have to get ugly. I stared at the message, rage building in my chest like a fire. He thought he could waltz in here, collect his belongings, and leave me and Teo with nothing? He thought he could use my disabled son as an excuse for his betrayals and walk away clean? He was about to learn exactly how ugly things could get. I scrolled through my contacts and found the number for Bukola Adeyemi, the most ruthless divorce lawyer in Lagos. We'd gone to nursing school together before she switched to law. If anyone could help me fight this, it was her. Bukola, it's Kemi. I need your help. It's an emergency. Kemi. Merry Christmas, girl. What's going on? My husband is trying to steal everything from me and abandon our disabled son. Can you meet me today? Give me 2 hours. And Kemi. Don't sign anything until I get there. I hung up and looked at Teo, who was playing peacefully with his gifts, unaware that his father was planning to abandon him. This innocent child deserved better than parents who saw his medical needs as a burden. But as I gathered all the evidence, the emails, the photos, the bank documents, I felt something powerful stirring inside me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about protecting my son and showing the world what happened when you underestimated a mother's love. Adebayo wanted to play games? Fine. But he was about to discover that in this African marriage drama, he'd picked the wrong woman to betray. The real war was just beginning. What would you do if your own sister helped steal your future? Drop a comment and let me know. At exactly 3 p.m., Adebayo's black Mercedes pulled into our driveway. But he wasn't alone. Folake sat in the passenger seat, and behind them, a second car arrived carrying 2 men in expensive suits. Lawyers, no doubt. I watched from the window as they approached, Adebayo's face set with determination. He thought he was coming to collect his things and force me to sign away our life together. He had no idea that Bukola was already seated in my living room, reviewing the evidence we'd gathered. Kemi, Bukola had said when she'd arrived an hour earlier, what they've done isn't just adultery. It's fraud, theft, and financial abuse. We're not just fighting for your marriage, we're fighting for your survival. The doorbell rang, and I took a deep breath before opening it. Kemi, Adebayo said, his voice artificially calm. We need to talk. Then talk. I stepped aside to let them enter, noting how Folake couldn't meet my eyes. These are my lawyers, Adebayo continued, gesturing to the 2 men. We've prepared a settlement agreement that's fair to everyone. How thoughtful. I smiled sweetly. I have legal representation too. Bukola. My friend emerged from the living room, her presence immediately changing the atmosphere. The lawyers recognized her reputation. In Lagos legal circles, Bukola Adeyemi was known for dismantling cheating husbands in court. Gentlemen, Bukola said coolly, I trust you've advised your client about the legal implications of mortgage fraud? Adebayo's confident expression faltered. What are you talking about? The 5 million naira loan you took against this house without your wife's knowledge or consent. That's a felony in Nigeria, punishable by up to 7 years in prison. The color drained from Folake's face. Bayo, you said it was legal. Shut up, he hissed at her, but the damage was done. One of his lawyers whispered urgently in his ear, and I saw the moment Adebayo realized his plan was falling apart. But I wasn't done. Or maybe we should discuss your business contracts, I continued. The ones you've been redirecting to offshore accounts? I wonder what the Lagos state government would say about their contractor stealing public funds. You're bluffing, Adebayo said, but sweat beaded on his forehead. I pulled out a folder thick with documents. Bank statements, email threads, wire transfer records. Grace Okonkwo was very helpful in providing financial documentation. Did you forget she worked at your bank? Adebayo went rigid. You spoke to Grace? Lovely woman. 2 years, Bayo? Really? While I was working nights to pay for our son's medical care, you were lying to another woman about being divorced. Mommy. Teyo's voice called from his room. Can I come see Daddy? The sound of our son's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Everyone fell silent, remembering the innocent child at the center of this domestic betrayal. He doesn't know yet, I said quietly. But he'll have to learn that his father planned to abandon him because his medical expenses were bleeding you dry. Folake gasped. Kemi, that's not. It's not what? It's literally what he wrote in his email to you 2 weeks ago. I pulled out the printed message and read aloud. Don't worry about Kemi or the boy. We'll make sure they're taken care of, but they can't hold us back forever. Teyo's medical expenses are bleeding us dry anyway. The lawyers exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't just a messy divorce, it was potential abandonment of a disabled child, which would play terribly in court and in the media. Bukola seized the moment. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Adebayo, you will return every naira you've stolen from joint accounts. You'll pay back the mortgage you fraudulently obtained. And you'll provide full medical support for Teyo until he reaches adulthood. And if I refuse? Adebayo's voice was tight with anger. Then we go to court. And to the newspapers. And to your business partners. And to the Lagos state government. Bukola's smile was razor sharp. I wonder how many contracts you'll keep when they learn you abandoned your disabled son for your wife's sister. The public disgrace would destroy him. In Nigerian society, a man who abandons his disabled child becomes an outcast. His business would collapse. His social standing would evaporate. You can't prove any of this, one of his lawyers interjected weakly. I walked to Teyo's room and gently brought him out in his wheelchair. Baby, say hello to Daddy's friends. Hi, Daddy. Teyo's face lit up with pure joy at seeing his father. Did you bring me more presents? The room fell silent. Here was the child they'd planned to abandon, innocent and loving, greeting the man who saw him as a financial burden. Adebayo knelt down to Teyo's level, and for a moment, his mask slipped. I saw genuine pain cross his face, the first real emotion he'd shown all day. Hi, son. Daddy. Daddy has to go away for a while. But you just got back. Teyo's smile faded. Are you leaving again? It's complicated, Teyo. Is it because I'm sick? Because I can't walk like other kids? The question hung in the air like a bomb. Even the lawyers looked uncomfortable. Folake was openly crying now, perhaps finally understanding the magnitude of what they'd done. No, baby, I said firmly, lifting Teyo from his wheelchair to hold him close. You are perfect exactly as you are. This has nothing to do with you. But Adebayo's silence spoke volumes. In that moment, everyone in the room understood that he did blame our son, that he saw Teyo's condition as the reason for his infidelity and betrayal. I need time to think, Adebayo said finally, standing. You have 24 hours, Bukola replied. After that, we file charges and go public. As they moved toward the door, Folake stopped and turned to me. Kemi, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. You're sorry you got caught, I replied coldly. There's a difference. After they left, I sat holding Taeyo, who was crying softly into my shoulder. Mommy, is Daddy really leaving us? I don't know, baby. But whatever happens, Mommy will always take care of you. Promise. Promise. But as I made that vow, my phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. Mrs. Adebayo, this is Detective Inspector Okafor. We need to talk about your husband. Can you come to the station tomorrow? It's urgent. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. What had Adebayo done that required police attention? Was there more to this betrayal than I'd discovered? As I tucked Taeyo into bed that night, singing him the lullaby I'd sung since he was born, I realized our fight was far from over. Whatever tomorrow brought, I would be ready. Because sometimes, the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you deepest, but they're also the ones who underestimate your strength. Comment below what you think the police want to discuss. And don't forget to share this story with someone who loves drama. They won't believe what happens next. Detective Inspector Okafor was a stern woman in her 50s, with kind eyes that had seen too much of human cruelty. She gestured for me to sit across from her desk in the cramped office at the Ikoyi police station. Mrs. Adebayo, thank you for coming. I know this is difficult timing. What is this about, Inspector? She opened a file and pulled out several photographs. Do you recognize this woman? My blood turned to ice. The photo showed a young woman, maybe 25, with a face I'd seen before but couldn't place. She was beautiful, with the kind of bright smile that suggested she'd never known real hardship. I'm not sure. Her name was Chinelo Okafor. She was found dead in her apartment 3 days ago. She's dead. My voice came out as a whisper. Apparent suicide. But we found some interesting things in her possession. The inspector pulled out more documents. Text messages from your husband. Love letters. And this. She handed me a pregnancy test. Positive. My world tilted on its axis. Another woman. Pregnant with my husband's child. Dead. Mrs. Adebayo, we believe your husband was having an affair with Miss Okafor. The messages suggest he promised to leave you and marry her. But recently, those messages changed tone. She showed me printouts of text exchanges. I read them with growing horror. Adebayo, I can't leave Kemi right now. The timing is wrong. Chinelo, you promised me. What about our baby? Adebayo, maybe it's better if there is no baby. Chinelo, what do you mean? Adebayo, figure it out, Chinelo. I can't be tied down by another disabled child. I dropped the papers like they were on fire. Another disabled child? Miss Okafor's medical records show the baby had Down syndrome. Your husband apparently told her he couldn't handle another burden like your son. The room was spinning. Not only had Adebayo betrayed me with multiple women, but he'd driven one to suicide by abandoning her pregnant with his child, a child he rejected because of potential disability. Inspector, are you saying my husband killed this woman? We're investigating. Her suicide note mentioned the lies of men who promise love but deliver shame. But emotionally manipulation can be just as deadly as physical violence. I stared at the photographs of Chinelo, this young woman who'd believed my husband's lies just as I had, just as Grace had, just as Folake had. How many others were there? Mrs. Adebayo, we need to ask, has your husband ever been violent toward you or your son? No, never physically. But emotionally. I thought about all the times he'd made me feel like Taeyo's condition was my fault, like I was inadequate as a wife and mother. He's cruel with words. We'd like to search his business premises, his computers, his files. We believe Miss Okafor wasn't the only one. My phone rang. Bucola's name flashed on the screen. I need to take this. Hello. Kemi, where are you? Adebayo just showed up at your house with moving trucks. He's trying to take everything while you're gone. I shot to my feet. He's what? I'm here with Taeyo, but I can't stop them legally. They have some kind of court order. I'll be right there. I turned to Inspector Okafor. My husband is stealing my belongings while I'm here. Go. But Mrs. Adebayo, be careful. Men who feel cornered do desperate things. I raced through Lagos traffic, my heart pounding with rage and fear. When I reached Victoria Island, I saw 3 moving trucks parked outside my house. Men were loading furniture, appliances, even Taeyo's adaptive equipment. Bucola met me at the gate, her face grim. He got an emergency court order claiming you threatened him with false criminal charges. Judge ordered the house contents to be held in escrow pending divorce proceedings. Where's Taeyo? Inside, crying. They tried to take his wheelchair. I pushed past the movers and found my son in his room, tears streaming down his face as strangers packed his belongings. Mommy. He reached for me desperately. They're taking my things. I knelt beside him, fury burning in my chest. Nobody touches my son's medical equipment, I announced loudly. One of the movers paused. Ma'am, we have orders. You have orders to take furniture, not life-sustaining medical devices. Touch that wheelchair again and I'll have you arrested for endangering a disabled child. Adebayo appeared in the doorway, flanked by his lawyers. Kemi, this is all legal. The court doesn't know you're under investigation for driving a pregnant woman to suicide. I stood, placing myself between him and Taeyo. His face went white. What are you talking about? Chinelo Okafor. Remember her. Young, pregnant with your baby, dead because you abandoned her when you learned the child had Down syndrome. The movers stopped working. His lawyers exchanged worried glances. Even Folake, who'd been lurking by the door, gasped. You don't know what you're talking about, Adebayo said, but his voice shook. The police have your text messages, Bayo. All of them. They know about every woman you've lied to, every promise you've broken. I pulled out my phone and called Inspector Okafor. Inspector? Yes, he's here now. Taking my disabled son's medical equipment. She spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Adebayo is needed for questioning immediately. Any interference with that family's well-being will be considered obstruction of justice. The effect was immediate. The movers began unloading Taeyo's equipment. The lawyers huddled with Adebayo in urgent conversation. But as the chaos unfolded around us, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Folake was quietly slipping items into her purse. My grandmother's jewelry, family photographs, documents from my safe. She wasn't just Adebayo's mistress. She was his accomplice in erasing our family's history. Stop right there, I called out to her. She froze, guilt written across her face. Kemi, I was just what? Stealing the jewelry our grandmother left for our family? The photos of our parents. I have a right to family pictures too. You gave up that right when you decided to destroy this family. I held out my hand. Give it back. All of it. Make me, she said, the sweet sister I'd raised finally showing her true nature. Gladly. I grabbed her purse and dumped its contents on the floor. Out spilled my mother's wedding rings, our father's watch, birth certificates, and insurance documents. You've been planning this for months, I realized. Not just the affair. The complete destruction of everything I built. Adebayo grabbed Folake's arm. We're leaving. Now. But as they moved toward the door, Inspector Okafor arrived with 2 uniformed officers. Mr. Adebayo, you need to come with us. This is harassment, he protested. This is a murder investigation, she replied calmly. You can come willingly or in handcuffs. As they led him away, Folake tried to follow, but Inspector Okafor blocked a path. Miss Adebayo, you're also needed for questioning. About the financial fraud and your relationship with the deceased. The color drained from Folake's face. What deceased? I don't know anything about. Chinelo Okafor. Your lover's other pregnant mistress. The one who killed herself because of his lies. Folake looked at me with panic in her eyes, finally understanding she wasn't his only secret. Kemi, I didn't know. You never do, I said quietly. You never know anything until it's too late. As the police cars drove away with my husband and sister, I stood in my half-empty house, holding Teo close. The moving trucks left behind a scene of devastation, but for the first time in days, I felt something like hope. Because sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the most important truths. And the truth was, I was stronger than any of them had imagined. 3 days after the arrests, Lagos was buzzing with news of the scandal. Prominent contractor arrested in suicide investigation, screamed the headlines of the Punch. Social media exploded with speculation about Adebayo's business dealings and personal life. But I was focused on something more important, rebuilding our life. Teo had been asking fewer questions about his father, as if sensing that some silences were better left unbroken. We'd established new routines, breakfast together, his physical therapy sessions, quiet evenings reading stories. For the first time in years, our house felt peaceful. Then Grace Okonkwo called. Kemi, we need to meet. There's something else you need to know. She sounded different, harder, more determined. We arranged to meet at a cafe in Lekki Phase 1, away from the prying eyes of Victoria Island. Grace was already seated when I arrived, a laptop open in front of her and several files spread across the table. She looked like a woman on a mission. Thank you for coming, she said. I've been thinking about everything, about how he lied to all of us. And I realized something. We're not just victims. We're witnesses. Witnesses to what? To a pattern of behavior that goes back years. She turned her laptop screen toward me. I've been researching his past relationships, his business dealings. Kemi, Chinelo wasn't the first. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? 4 years ago, a woman named Amara Igwe filed a police report against Adebayo for harassment after she broke off their affair. She was married, felt guilty, tried to end things. He threatened to tell her husband unless she gave him money. Blackmail. Emotional manipulation at minimum. But here's what's interesting. Amara worked at First Bank, and during their affair, Adebayo got several business loans approved that should have been rejected. I stared at the documents she showed me. You think he's been using affairs to manipulate women in financial positions? I think he's a predator who targets women with access to money or power. Grace's voice was ice cold. Look at the pattern. Me at Standard Bank, Amara at First Bank. Even your sister had access to your family's finances. And Chinelo? Her father owns a construction company. Adebayo was trying to secure a partnership. Grace pulled out more papers. I found their correspondence. He promised her marriage, a future together, then tried to use her pregnancy to pressure her father into the business deal. The scope of his manipulation was staggering. This wasn't just infidelity in marriage, it was systematic exploitation of women for financial gain. Grace, why are you showing me this? She closed the laptop and leaned forward. Because I want to destroy him. Completely. Legally. And I think you do too. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Inspector Okafor's number. Mrs. Adebayo, can you come to the station? We've made some discoveries in Mr. Adebayo's office that concern you. An hour later, I sat in the same cramped office, but this time Grace was beside me. Inspector Okafor spread photos across her desk, screenshots of computer files, financial records, and something that made my blood boil. We found these in your husband's personal safe, she said, pointing to a folder marked Insurance. Inside were copies of medical reports about Taeyo's condition, but they'd been altered. The prognosis had been changed to make his cerebral palsy appear more severe than it actually was, his life expectancy shortened, his care costs inflated. What is this? I whispered. Your husband has been using falsified medical reports to claim inflated insurance payouts for your son's care. The money was going into accounts you didn't know about. My hands trembled as I read the doctored reports. Adebayo had been profiting from our son's disability, using Taeyo's condition to steal from insurance companies while portraying himself as a burdened father. There's more, Inspector Okafor continued. We believe he was planning to have your son declared a ward of the state, claiming you were unfit to care for him due to financial instability. He was going to take Taeyo away from me? The paperwork was already in progress. Once you were declared unfit, he planned to place Taeyo in state care while collecting continued insurance payments. Grace grabbed my hand as I struggled to breathe. The betrayal was deeper than I'd imagined. He hadn't just wanted to abandon our son, he'd wanted to institutionalize him while continuing to profit from his suffering. But we found something else, the inspector said, pulling out a recording device. Your sister made some very interesting statements during her interrogation. She pressed play, and Folake's voice filled the room. I didn't know about the insurance fraud. Bayo told me Kemi was keeping Taeyo sick on purpose, that she was giving him medications he didn't need to make his condition worse. He said it was the only way to afford his care. Miss Adebayo, are you saying your brother-in-law told you Mrs. Adebayo was medically abusing her son? Yes. He showed me the medical reports, said the doctors were worried but couldn't prove anything because Kemi was a nurse and knew how to hide it. He said we had to save Taeyo from her. I stared at the device in horror. He convinced my own sister that I was abusing my child? It gets worse, Inspector Okafor said. He used that narrative to justify their affair. Told her he was staying with you only to protect Taeyo, that he needed her help to document your abuse, so he could get custody. The room was spinning. Adebayo had manipulated Folake by making her believe she was saving Taeyo from me. My sister hadn't just betrayed me. She genuinely believed she was rescuing my son from an abusive mother. He's a master manipulator, Grace said quietly. He finds what each woman cares about most and uses it against us. With me, it was loneliness. With your sister, it was protecting Taeyo. With Chinelo, it was her desire for family. Where is my sister now? I asked. Released on bail, but she's been asking to see you. Says she needs to explain. I thought about Folake, the little girl I'd raised after our parents died. The woman who'd held Taeyo during his seizures, who'd cried when he took his first steps with his walker. Had she really believed I was hurting him? I want to see her, I said finally. Kemi, are you sure? Grace asked. After everything she's done? She's still my sister. And if what she's saying is true, then she's as much his victim as we are. Inspector Okafor nodded. We can arrange that. But Mrs. Adebayo, there's one more thing. The investigation into Chinelo's death has taken a new turn. She pulled out a final folder. We found evidence that your husband was drugging her. Antidepressants mixed into her food, enough to cause severe mood swings and suicidal ideation. This wasn't just emotional manipulation, it was chemical. The words hit me like a physical blow. He was poisoning her? Slowly, systematically, until she became unstable enough to take her own life. We believe he did the same thing to Amara Igwe 4 years ago, but she survived. Grace went pale. Inspector, I've been feeling strange lately. Dizzy, confused, emotional in ways that aren't normal for me. We'll need blood tests from both of you immediately, Inspector Okafor said grimly. If he was willing to drug one woman to death, he may have been doing it to others. As we drove to the hospital for blood tests, my mind raced with the implications. Had Adebayo been slowly poisoning me too? Was that why I'd been so tired, so emotionally fragile in recent months? Had I blamed myself for problems he was chemically creating? Kemi, Grace said as we sat in the hospital waiting room, whatever these tests show, we're going to get through this together. We're not victims anymore. We're survivors. And survivors fight back. I squeezed her hand, grateful for this unexpected ally. What did you have in mind? She smiled, and for the first time since this nightmare began, it wasn't a sad expression. I'm thinking it's time Lagos learned the truth about Adebayo. All of it. As we waited for test results that could change everything, I realized that sometimes the worst betrayals create the strongest bonds. Grace and I had been strangers a week ago, connected only by our shared humiliation. Now we were partners in seeking justice. But first, I needed to face my sister and learn the truth about what she'd really believed, and why. The blood tests would tell us if we'd been poisoned. The conversation with Folake would tell us if there was any family left to save. Either way, our war against Adebayo was about to escalate in ways he'd never anticipated. Do you think Folake genuinely believed she was saving Tayo, or was she just making excuses? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed. The revenge is just getting started. The meeting with Folake took place in a sterile conference room at the police station. She looked smaller than I remembered, her usually perfect makeup smudged, her designer clothes wrinkled. When she saw me enter, she burst into tears. Kemi, I'm so sorry. I believed. I sat across from her, Grace beside me for support, and waited for her to compose herself. Tell me what you believed, I said quietly. He showed me medical reports saying Tayo's condition was getting worse because of over-medication. He said you were giving him drugs he didn't need, keeping him sicker than necessary. Her voice was barely a whisper. He said you'd been doing it for years to get attention and insurance money. And you believed him? Over me? After everything I've done for you? He had documentation, Kemi. Reports from doctors, pharmacy records showing you picking up medications that weren't prescribed. He said you were so stressed about money that you'd lost perspective on what was healthy for Tayo. Grace leaned forward. Folake, did it ever occur to you to ask Kemi directly? Or to speak to Tayo's actual doctors? I tried. But Bayo said that would tip you off and you'd just hide the evidence better. He said we had to gather proof first, protect Tayo, then confront you. Folake wiped her eyes. I thought I was saving my nephew. I stared at my sister, trying to reconcile this story with the woman I'd caught in my bed. So the affair was part of the plan to save Tayo? He said he couldn't divorce you while you had custody, that it would leave Tayo vulnerable. He needed to document your abuse first, build a case for custody. Her voice broke. He said he loved you once, but watching you hurt Tayo had destroyed that love. He said he needed someone who understood, someone who could help him save his son. The manipulation was breathtaking in its complexity. Adebayo had convinced my sister that sleeping with him was an act of heroism, that betraying me was protecting Tayo. Folake, I said slowly, did you ever see me give Tayo any medication that seemed unnecessary? She hesitated. Well, no. But Bayo said you were too smart to do it when I was watching. Did you ever see Tayo acting over-medicated? Sluggish, confused, sicker than usual. No, but did any of Tayo's doctors ever express concern about his treatment to you directly? No. Her voice was getting smaller. Did it ever occur to you that maybe, just maybe, Bayo was lying? Folake collapsed forward, her head in her hands. I wanted to believe there was a good reason. I couldn't accept that that I had destroyed my family for nothing. Grace pulled out a folder. Folake, I want to show you something. These are the real medical reports from Tayo's doctors. Look at the dates. She spread out the documents, the authentic reports alongside the falsified ones Adebayo had shown Folake. The differences were stark. The real reports showed Tayo making steady progress, responding well to his medications, his condition stable and manageable. The fake reports painted a picture of decline and over-treatment. He forged these, Grace explained. Every single one. The doctors never wrote these conclusions. The pharmacy records were falsified too. Folake stared at the papers, the truth finally sinking in. He made it all up. Everything he told me was a lie. Not just about the medical reports, I said. He was using you, Folake. The same way he used Grace, the same way he used Chinello. You weren't special to him. You were just another tool in his scheme. But he said he loved me. He said we'd start a new life together. Grace laughed bitterly. He told me the same thing. Right up until he abandoned me for your sister. And he told Chinello the same thing right up until he drove her to suicide. The weight of her manipulation seemed to hit Folake all at once. Oh God. Chinello. The pregnant woman. Is she really dead because of him? The blood tests came back, Inspector Okafor said, entering the room. Mrs. Adebayo, you had elevated levels of anxiolytics in your system. Drugs that cause confusion and emotional instability. Miss Okonkwo, yours showed antidepressants that could trigger suicidal thoughts. I felt the room tilt. He was drugging me too? Most likely in your food or drinks at home. The levels suggest consistent exposure over several months. Folake went white. Inspector, test me too. Please. I've been feeling strange lately. Emotional, impulsive, not like myself. While we waited for Folake's results, Grace pulled me aside. Kemi, I've been thinking. We have evidence of fraud, manipulation, possible murder. But what we don't have is justice for all his victims. What do you mean? I mean there are probably more women out there who don't even know they were victimized. Women who think they're crazy, who blame themselves for his abuse. She pulled out her phone. I want to go public. All of us together. Tell the whole story. A press conference. More than that. A campaign. We expose him completely. His methods, his victims, his crimes. We make sure no other woman falls for his lies. The idea was terrifying but appealing. For too long, Adebayo had operated in shadows, using our shame and isolation against us. What if we brought everything into the light? Folake's results are back, Inspector Okafor announced, returning to the room. Elevated levels of stimulants and mood stabilizers. Someone has been chemically manipulating her behavior for months. My sister looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Kemi, I'm so sorry. I wasn't myself. I wasn't thinking clearly. He was drugging me too. I studied her face, seeing my little sister for the first time in months instead of the stranger who'd betrayed me. The medication explained so much. Her impulsiveness, her willingness to believe his lies, her complete abandonment of the values I'd taught her. Folake, I said finally, if you're serious about making amends, then help us. Help us make sure he never hurts another woman. How? Grace leaned forward. Tell your story. All of it. Help us show the world what he really is. Folake nodded slowly. Yes. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Inspector Okafor cleared her throat. Ladies, I should mention, Mr. Adebayo made bail this morning. His lawyers managed to get most charges reduced pending further investigation. The blood drained from my face. He's free. For now. But he's not allowed to contact any of you or return to the family home. Folake. Too late, Grace said grimly. The time for private negotiations is over. Tomorrow, Lagos would learn the truth about Adebayo. And once they did, there would be no going back for any of us. The war was about to go public, and we were ready. What do you think happens when a cheating husband realizes his victims are fighting back together? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to share this with anyone who needs to hear that you're stronger than your betrayer thinks. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the Civic Center in Victoria Island. By 9:30, the parking lot was packed with news vans from TVC, channels, and NTA. Social media had been buzzing since dawn with hashtags like #Adebayo Scandal and #Lagos Wives Fight Back. Grace, Folake, and I sat in a small room behind the main hall, reviewing our statements one final time. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was steel. Remember, Bukola said, adjusting her suit jacket as our legal representative, stick to facts. Don't let them bait you into emotional responses. We have evidence for everything we're saying. Through the window, I could see the crowd gathering, reporters, cameras, and surprisingly, dozens of women holding signs. Someone had leaked our story online, and apparently, we weren't the only ones with grievances against Adebayo. Mrs. Adebayo? A young reporter knocked on our door. There's a woman outside claiming to be another victim. Says her name is Amara Igwe. Grace and I exchanged glances. Bring her in. Amara was an elegant woman in her 40s, impeccably dressed but with haunted eyes. She recognized Grace immediately. You're the bank officer he was seeing, she said. I read about you online. And you're the one from 4 years ago, Grace replied. The harassment case. Amara nodded grimly. When I heard about this press conference, I knew I had to come. He destroyed my marriage, my reputation, my sense of self. But I was too ashamed to fight back then. What happened? I asked. He pursued me relentlessly after meeting me at a banking conference. I was married, vulnerable. My husband and I were having problems. Adebayo seemed like salvation. Her voice hardened. But when I tried to end things, he threatened to tell my husband everything unless I helped him get fraudulent loans approved. Did you? Folake asked quietly. I approved one loan I shouldn't have. 50 million naira for a project that didn't exist. When bank auditors started asking questions, I panicked and tried to kill myself. She rolled up her sleeves, showing faint scars on her wrists. I survived, but my marriage didn't. My career didn't. He moved on to his next victim while I lost everything. The room fell silent. Here was living proof that Adebayo's pattern of destruction went back years, that we weren't isolated incidents but part of a systematic campaign of abuse. Amara, I said, will you join us out there? Will you tell your story? That's why I'm here. At exactly 10 a.m., we walked onto the stage facing a packed auditorium. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. I approached the microphone, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Good morning. My name is Kemi Adebayo, and I'm here to tell you about the man I married 12 years ago, and the monster he became. I started with Christmas Eve, the discovery of the affair with my sister. I moved through the financial fraud, the drugging, the insurance scams. The audience was riveted, hanging on every word. But this isn't just about infidelity in marriage, I continued. This is about a predator who targets vulnerable women, manipulates them chemically and emotionally, and destroys lives for profit. Grace took the microphone next, her banker's precision cutting through any doubt about the financial crimes. She presented documents, bank records, and a timeline that showed the scope of Adebayo's operations. He didn't just steal money, she said. He stole our ability to trust, to love, to believe in ourselves. But today, we're taking that power back. Folake's testimony was the most emotional. She spoke about the falsified medical reports, about believing she was saving Tae-yo, about the drugs that clouded her judgment. I thought I was protecting my nephew, she said through tears. Instead, I was helping a man who saw my disabled nephew as a source of profit. I will never forgive myself for that. Then Amara stepped forward, and the room went completely silent. Her story of survival, of attempted suicide, of years of reconstruction, painted a picture of Adebayo as not just a cheater but a destroyer of human beings. 4 years ago, I tried to take my own life because of what this man did to me, she said. Today, I'm here to make sure no other woman reaches that point. The questions from reporters came fast and furious. Mrs. Adebayo, what's your message to other women who might be in similar situations? Document everything. Trust your instincts. And know that you're stronger than your abuser believes. Miss Okonkwo, what's your response to claims that this is just a coordinated attack on a successful businessman? Grace's laugh was bitter. Ask Chinelo Okafor. Oh wait, you can't. She's dead because she believed his lies. Miss Adebayo, some people are saying you're just covering for your own poor choices in having an affair. Folake lifted her chin. Blood tests prove I was being drugged. Medical experts will testify that my decision-making was chemically compromised. But even if it wasn't, even if I made those choices freely, that doesn't excuse fraud, manipulation, and driving a pregnant woman to suicide. The conference lasted 90 minutes. By the time we finished, #Adebayo scandal was trending nationwide, and my phone was buzzing with messages from women across Nigeria sharing their own stories of manipulation and abuse. But as we left the building, Bukola grabbed my arm. Kemi, we have a problem. Adebayo's lawyers just filed for emergency custody of Tae-yo, claiming this press conference proves you're mentally unstable and using your son for publicity. My blood turned to ice. They can't. They can try. Court hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. They're claiming that exposing Tae-yo to this media circus constitutes child endangerment. Grace cursed in Igbo. He's fighting back. Using Tae-yo as a weapon. Then we fight harder, I said grimly. What do we need? Character witnesses. Medical experts. Proof that you're a fit mother who's protecting her son, not exploiting him. That evening as I put Tae-yo to bed, he asked the question I'd been dreading. Mommy, why are there cameras outside our house? Why is everyone talking about Daddy on TV? I sat on his bed, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes, baby, adults make very bad choices that hurt other people. When that happens, the truth has to come out so those people can't hurt anyone else. Is Daddy a bad man? The question broke my heart. How do you explain to a child that his father saw him as a burden, as a source of profit rather than love? Daddy is sick, Tae-yo. He's sick in his heart and his mind. But that's not your fault, and it doesn't change how much Mommy loves you. Will he try to take me away from you? I held him close, breathing in his sweet scent. I won't let that happen. I promise. But as I turned off his light and closed his door, I knew tomorrow's court hearing would be the fight of our lives. Adebayo was desperate now, cornered and dangerous. He would use every weapon he had, including our son's love for him, to win. I called Bukola. What are his chances of getting custody? Honestly, If he can convince the judge that you're using Tae-yo for revenge, that you're prioritizing publicity over his well-being, it's possible. Then we need to make sure that doesn't happen. Kemi, what are you thinking? I looked toward Tae-yo's room, where my son slept peacefully, unaware that his future hung in the balance. I'm thinking it's time for Adebayo to learn that a mother protecting her child is the most dangerous force on earth. Tomorrow would determine whether justice prevailed or whether a master manipulator could steal one more thing from his victims, the thing that mattered most. Can you believe he's trying to take Tae-yo away after everything he's done? What would you do in Kemi's position? Comment below and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe for the explosive conclusion. The family court in Lagos was a battlefield disguised as a hall of justice. Judge Sarah Adunni presided with the stern demeanor of a woman who'd seen every kind of family destruction, but even she seemed shocked by the evidence presented in our case. Adebayo sat across the courtroom with his legal team, looking confident in an expensive suit. He'd shaved, gotten a haircut, and projected the image of a concerned father fighting an unstable ex-wife. His performance was masterful, until our evidence started mounting. Bukola began with the medical testimony. Dr. Emeka Okafor, Tae-yo's neurologist since birth, took the stand with a thick file of authentic medical records. Your Honor, in 8 years of treating Tae-yo Adebayo, I have never seen any evidence of medical abuse or over-medication by Mrs. Adebayo. Her care has been exemplary, following every treatment protocol precisely. Adebayo's lawyer, a sharp woman in red, stood to cross-examine. Doctor, are you aware that Mrs. Adebayo has been giving her son medications not prescribed by you? Yes, I'm aware of the falsified pharmacy records Mr. Adebayo created. However, our investigation with the actual pharmacies shows Mrs. Adebayo has never purchased medications outside of prescribed treatments. The lawyer faltered. The defense wasn't aware of any investigation. Because your client created fraudulent documents, Dr. Okafor continued calmly. Documents good enough to fool family members but not medical professionals or pharmacy databases. Score 1 for our side. Next, Inspector Okafor testified about the criminal investigation. The courtroom gasped when she presented evidence of the insurance fraud, how Adebayo had been claiming payments for inflated medical expenses while simultaneously planning to institutionalize Tae-yo. Your Honor, Mr. Adebayo has been profiting from his son's disability while planning to abandon him to state care. This custody petition is likely another attempt to gain control of the child's insurance benefits. Adebayo's lawyer objected strenuously, but the financial records spoke for themselves. Bank statements showed thousands of naira in medical reimbursements going to accounts Adebayo controlled, none of which had been used for Tae-yo's actual care. Then came character witnesses. Tae-yo's teachers, his physical therapists, our neighbors, all testified about my devotion to my son and Adebayo's increasing absence from his care. Mrs. Adebayo attends every therapy session, said Mrs. Chinedu, Tae-yo's special education teacher. She advocates fiercely for his needs, volunteers at school events, ensures he has every opportunity to succeed. In 5 years, I've seen Mr. Adebayo at exactly 2 school functions. But Adebayo's team wasn't finished. They called their own witness, Dr. Kunal Adelik, a psychiatrist who'd never met me but claimed to have evaluated my psychological state based on recent behavior. Your Honor, Mrs. Adebayo's decision to hold a public press conference exposing intimate family details shows dangerous attention-seeking behavior that prioritizes publicity over her child's privacy and emotional well-being. My stomach clenched. This was their strategy. Paint me as a fame-hungry woman exploiting my son's situation for sympathy. Furthermore, Dr. Adelik continued, her coordination with other alleged victims suggests an obsessive need for validation that could manifest as manipulation of her disabled child for emotional support. Bukola's cross-examination was surgical. Dr. Adelik, Have you ever treated a victim of systematic emotional and chemical abuse? Well, no, but have you reviewed Mrs. Adebayo's medical records showing evidence of being drugged without her knowledge? I wasn't provided with. Have you interviewed Mrs. Adebayo directly, observed her interactions with her son, or reviewed any of his actual medical files? The court asked for an evaluation based on. So your testimony is based entirely on newspaper reports and assumptions? Dr. Adelique's credibility crumbled under questioning. But I could see the doubt in Judge Adunny's eyes. The press conference had been a risk, and now it might cost me my son. Then Bukola played our trump card. Your Honor, I'd like to call Teyo Adebayo to chambers for a private conversation. Adebayo shot to his feet. Your Honor, my son has cerebral palsy. He's not competent to. Mr. Adebayo, Judge Adunny's voice was ice. Your son has a physical disability, not an intellectual one. Unless you're claiming he's mentally incapacitated, which would contradict your custody petition. Caught in his own trap, Adebayo sat down. 20 minutes later, Judge Adunny returned from chambers with Teyo in his wheelchair. My son looked small but determined, wearing his best clothes and the serious expression he got when he was trying to be grown up. Your Honor, Teyo said clearly, may I please say something? The judge nodded. Go ahead, young man. I heard people saying my mommy is bad for talking on TV about our family. But my mommy didn't want to. She cried about it. Teyo's voice was steady, mature beyond his years. She only did it because she said other mommies needed to know the truth so their kids would be safe. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of my heart breaking with pride. My daddy used to say mean things about me when he thought I wasn't listening. He said I cost too much money and made him tired. But my mommy never says things like that. She tells me I'm perfect the way I am. Adebayo's face had gone white. Several jurors were wiping their eyes. I love my daddy, but I want to stay with my mommy. She takes care of me every day and reads me stories and helps me with my wheelchair when it gets stuck. She's the best mommy in the world. Judge Adunny's stern expression had softened. Thank you, Teyo. You're very brave. After Teyo was escorted out, the judge addressed both sides. I've heard enough. Mr. Adebayo, your petition for custody is denied. Furthermore, given the evidence of fraud and abuse, your visitation rights are suspended pending resolution of criminal charges. Relief flooded through me, but Judge Adunny wasn't finished. Mrs. Adebayo, while I understand your motivation for the press conference, I'm ordering family counseling to ensure Teyo has proper support for processing these events. The court recognizes that you acted to protect not only your family but potentially other victims, but your son's well-being remains paramount. Thank you, Your Honor. I understand. As we left the courthouse, Adebayo cornered me in the hallway. His mask of respectability had finally slipped, revealing the desperate man underneath. This isn't over, Kemi. You think you've won, but I know things about you. Like what? I faced him calmly. That I worked myself to exhaustion caring for our son while you were lying to other women? That I sacrificed everything for our family while you planned to abandon us? That I trusted you completely while you systematically destroyed my life? You'll regret this. Both of you. No. Bayo. You'll regret underestimating what a mother will do to protect her child. Inspector Okafor appeared with 2 uniformed officers. Mr. Adebayo, you're under arrest for violating the restraining order by approaching Mrs. Adebayo. As they led him away, I felt a chapter closing. But Bukola grabbed my arm, her expression worried. Kemi, we got a tip from one of his business partners. Adebayo's been liquidating assets, transferring money offshore. We think he's planning to flee the country. When? Tonight. Maybe tomorrow morning. There's a private flight scheduled to Dubai. I looked toward the court building where my son waited with Grace and Folake, finally safe from his father's manipulation. But if Adebayo escaped Nigeria, he'd never face justice for what he'd done to Chinelo, to all of us. What can we do? The court froze his known accounts, but if he has hidden assets... Bukola shrugged. Rich men have ways of disappearing. As we drove home, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Mrs. Adebayo, this is Amara Igwe. I have information about Adebayo's escape plan. Meet me at the Eco Hotel lobby in 1 hour. Come alone. I showed the message to Grace, who was driving. It could be a trap, she said. Or it could be our last chance to stop him from getting away with everything. The decision would determine whether Adebayo faced justice or disappeared forever, leaving his victims with incomplete closure and other women vulnerable to his predatory behavior. But first, I had to decide if I was willing to risk everything one more time. The Eco Hotel lobby buzzed with its usual mix of business travelers and wealthy Lagosians, but I spotted Amara immediately. She sat in a corner booth, nervous energy radiating from her like heat. When she saw me approaching, she gestured urgently for me to sit. "Thank you for coming," she said, glancing around as if expecting to be overheard. "We don't have much time. What do you know about his escape plan?" Amara pulled out a tablet, showing me what looked like financial records. After the press conference, I reached out to someone I trust at the central bank. Adebayo has been moving money for months, not just to Dubai, but to accounts in Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, even some cryptocurrency wallets. The scope was staggering. How much money are we talking about? Over 200 million naira. Money stolen from insurance companies, fraudulent loans, inflated government contracts. But here's the thing, I know where he's keeping the transfer codes. My pulse quickened. Where? His office safe. The same one where police found the falsified medical reports. But there's more in there. Documents that could implicate other people, evidence of bribes to government officials, records of other women he's victimized. Amara, the police already searched his office. They searched for evidence related to your case. But they didn't know about the hidden compartment. She leaned forward urgently. I helped him install it 4 years ago when we were involved. He said it was for important business documents. You're talking about breaking into his office. I'm talking about justice. If he gets on that plane tomorrow morning, all that evidence disappears forever. More women will suffer. The money he stole from your son's medical care will fund his new life while Tayo goes without. I stared at the financial records on her tablet. 200 million naira. Money that should have gone to Tayo's therapy, his education, his future. Money stolen from other families dealing with medical crises. What exactly are you proposing? I still have the security codes for his building. My old keycard still works. I checked this morning. We go in tonight, get the evidence, turn it over to the police before his flight. That's breaking and entering. We could go to prison. And if we don't, he goes free. Amara's eyes blazed with determination. Kemi, 4 years ago I tried to kill myself because of what this man did to me. I've spent every day since then rebuilding my life, my self-worth, my ability to trust. Today, watching you and the others stand up to him, I felt powerful for the first time in years. Amara, I'm not asking you to risk your freedom for revenge. I'm asking you to help me make sure justice actually happens. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Inspector Okafor. Mrs. Adebayo, we have a problem. Adebayo made bail again. His lawyers found a technicality in the restraining order paperwork. He's free until his trial date. What does that mean? It means he can leave the country legally. Our request to freeze his passport was denied. I hung up and looked at Amara. He's free. He can leave any time. Then we have tonight. Maybe our last chance. I thought about Tayo, sleeping peacefully at home while his father prepared to escape justice. I thought about Chinello, dead because she believed Adebayo's lies. I thought about Grace, poisoned and abandoned. I thought about my sister, so chemically manipulated she'd lost herself. What would we need to do? Amora's smile was grim with satisfaction. I have a plan. 2 hours later, we sat in Grace's car outside Adebayo's office building in Victoria Island. The security guard was the same one who'd worked there for years. A man I brought Christmas gifts to when Adebayo and I were still pretending to be happy. Mrs. Adebayo, Samuel called out as we approached. What brings you here so late? I'd rehearsed this story. Samuel, I'm so sorry to bother you. With everything happening with the divorce, I realized I left some important documents in Bayo's office. Family photos, Tayo's medical records. The lawyers need them for tomorrow's proceedings. His face showed genuine sympathy. Ah, madam, this whole business is very bad. That your husband, the things they're saying on TV. I just need to get my son's documents, Samuel. You understand. He nodded and led us to the elevator. 5 minutes only, okay? I don't want any trouble. Adebayo's office was exactly as I remembered. Expensive furniture, awards on the walls, family photos that now seemed like mockeries. Amara went straight to the safe behind his desk while I kept watch. The hidden compartment is behind the main vault, she whispered, working on the combination. He never changed the code. It's Tayo's birthday, just like everything else. The irony was bitter. Even his criminal security codes revolved around the son he'd planned to abandon. The safe clicked open, and Amara began pulling out files. Kemi, look at this. The hidden compartment contained everything: bank routing numbers for offshore accounts, copies of falsified government contracts, correspondence with corrupt officials, and a thick folder labeled Insurance Claims, Disabled Dependents. Inside were medical files for at least a dozen children, some I recognized from Tayo's therapy sessions. Adebayo had been systematically inflating medical claims for multiple disabled children, stealing money meant for their care. He's been doing this to other families, I whispered in horror. For years, Amara confirmed, photographing everything with her phone. Some of these kids probably didn't get treatments they needed because he diverted the funds. My hands shook with rage as I read file after file. Children with cerebral palsy, autism, muscular dystrophy, all of them used as cash sources for Adebayo's schemes. We need to get this to the police immediately. First, the transfer codes. Amara found a USB drive taped inside the compartment. This probably contains access to all his offshore accounts. We photographed everything, copied files onto our phones, and prepared to leave. But as we reached the office door, we heard voices in the hallway. Told you, I need to get something from my office before the flight tomorrow. Adebayo's voice, getting closer. We were trapped. Amara grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the window. The fire escape. It's the only way. But as we struggled with the window latch, the office door opened, and Adebayo stepped in with 2 men I didn't recognize. Large, dangerous-looking men who weren't lawyers. Well, well, Adebayo said, his voice deadly calm. My dear wife and her new friend. How touching. One of the men moved to block the door while the other stepped toward us. These weren't legal advisors. They were enforcers. Bayo, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We were just stealing from my office? Just gathering more lies to tell the newspapers. His facade of respectability was completely gone now, replaced by cold fury. You've cost me everything, Kemi. My reputation, my business, my freedom. But you won't cost me my escape. The police know we're here, Amara said defiantly. Adebayo laughed. No, they don't. Samuel called me the moment you arrived. He's been on my payroll for years. The security guard had betrayed us. We were alone with a desperate man who'd already driven one woman to suicide. What do you want? I asked. I want you to understand that some games have consequences. He nodded to his men. Take their phones. Delete everything they copied. And then. Amara's voice was barely steady. Adebayo's smile was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Then we make sure this is the last time either of you interferes with my business. As his men moved toward us, I realized we might have pushed too far. In trying to get justice, we might have put ourselves in mortal danger. But sometimes, when you're fighting a monster, you have to be willing to risk everything. The question was, would our gamble save other victims, or had we just become victims ourselves? The answer would determine whether justice prevailed or whether evil escaped to destroy more lives. Oh my God, are they in real danger now? What would you do if you were trapped like this? Comment below and make sure you're subscribed. You won't believe how this ends. The office felt smaller with Adebayo's enforcers blocking our escape routes. But as one of them reached for my phone, I did something that surprised even myself. I pressed the live video button on Instagram. What are you doing? Adebayo snapped. Showing Lagos what you really are, I said, holding the phone steady despite my shaking hands. Hello everyone, this is Kemi Adebayo, broadcasting live from my husband's office where he's just threatened me and Amara Egui with violence. Turn that off. He lunged for the phone, but I held it high. We found evidence that he's been stealing money from disabled children's medical funds. Files showing years of insurance fraud targeting the most vulnerable families in Lagos. The live viewer count was climbing rapidly. 100, 500, 1,000 people watching. Comments poured in, people sharing the stream. Kemi, stop this madness, Adebayo said, but I could see panic in his eyes. You're destroying yourself. I'm exposing you. I kept the camera rolling, showing the scattered files on his desk. Everyone watching, this man has been using disabled children as a source of profit. He inflated their medical expenses, stole their insurance money, and planned to abandon his own disabled son. Turn it off now. Adebayo grabbed one of the documents and held it toward the camera. These are confidential medical records. You're violating privacy laws. But his outburst only confirmed what I was saying. The comment section exploded with outrage, people tagging news outlets, demanding justice. Amara picked up the theme, holding up more files to the camera. Viewers, these are falsified documents used to steal money from families with disabled children. Some of you watching might have been victims too. The viewer count hit 5,000. Then 10,000. Local journalists were commenting, asking for location details. The story was spreading faster than wildfire across social media. Sir, one of Adebayo's men said nervously, too many people are watching. This isn't good for business. Make them stop recording. But it was too late. Through the office window, I could see news vans arriving, drawn by the viral live stream. Police cars were pulling up behind them. My phone buzzed with a call from Inspector Okafor. I answered on speaker, still recording. Mrs. Adebayo, we're tracking your location through the live stream. Are you safe? For now, Inspector. We're in Adebayo's office with evidence of massive fraud targeting disabled children. He's here with 2 men who've been threatening us. We're 60 seconds away. Keep the stream running. Adebayo's face had gone ashen. His escape plan was crumbling in real time, broadcast to thousands of viewers who were sharing the stream across Nigeria and beyond. Bayo, I said, lowering the phone slightly but keeping it recording. It's over. You can cooperate now or make this worse, but you're not getting on that plane to Dubai. You don't understand what you've done, he said desperately. The people I work with, the money I owe them, they don't forgive debts. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you decided to steal from disabled children. The office door burst open, and police officers flooded in. Inspector Okafor took one look at the scene, scattered evidence, Adebayo's enforcers, our live stream still rolling, and immediately took charge. Mr. Adebayo, you're under arrest for criminal intimidation, attempting to destroy evidence, and violation of court orders. As they handcuffed him, he looked at me with something between hatred and desperation. This isn't justice, Kemi. This is revenge. No, I said, finally ending the live stream after 47 minutes that had been viewed by over 50,000 people. Justice is making sure no other family goes through what we did. Justice is protecting children who can't protect themselves. Justice, Amara added, handing over the USB drive with his financial records, is making sure you never profit from another child's suffering. The evidence we'd gathered that night led to the largest medical fraud investigation in Lagos state history. The stolen money, all 200 million naira, was recovered and returned to the families who'd been victimized. Adebayo's offshore accounts were frozen internationally. More importantly, the investigation uncovered a network of corruption involving insurance companies, medical facilities, and government officials. Dozens of arrests followed, and new protections were put in place for families with disabled children. 3 months later, I sat in our garden watching Teo practice with his new adaptive bicycle, purchased with money from a victim compensation fund established after the scandal. Grace and Amara had become not just allies but genuine friends, bonded by our shared survival. Folake was in therapy, working to rebuild herself after months of chemical manipulation. Our relationship was healing slowly, but she was committed to making amends. She'd started a support group for family members affected by domestic manipulation. "Mommy," Teo called out, successfully pedaling his bike in a small circle. "Look what I can do." "I see you, baby. You're amazing." He beamed with pride, and I marveled at his resilience. Despite everything that had happened, he remained joyful, loving, trusting. Children, I'd learned, are often stronger than the adults who try to protect them. My phone buzzed with a message from Bukola, sentencing hearing next week. 15 years minimum, no parole for first 10. He'll be old when he gets out. I closed the phone without responding. Adebayo's punishment mattered less than the fact that he could never hurt another family. The real victory was the dozens of children who would now receive proper medical care with the money that was rightfully theirs. That evening, as I tucked Teo into bed, he asked a question that surprised me. "Mommy, do you think Daddy will ever say sorry?" I considered my words carefully. "I don't know, baby. Some people find it very hard to admit when they've done wrong things. But you forgave Auntie Folake. That's different." Auntie Folake was sick because of medicine that confused her brain. When she got better, she felt very sorry and wanted to make things right. And Daddy? Daddy made choices when his brain was working fine. That's harder to forgive. Teo nodded thoughtfully. "I still love him, but I'm glad I get to stay with you." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." As I turned off his light, I reflected on everything we'd survived. The betrayal, the manipulation, the public humiliation, the fight for justice. All of it had led us here, to this peaceful moment in our safe home. Domestic betrayal had nearly destroyed us. Infidelity in marriage had shattered my trust. But in the end, the very qualities that made me vulnerable, my loyalty, my protectiveness, my willingness to sacrifice for family, had also made me strong enough to fight back. The story wasn't really about revenge, though that had felt satisfying. It was about refusing to let evil win, about protecting the innocent, about finding strength in solidarity with other survivors. Most importantly, it was about teaching my son that no matter how disabled the world might consider him, he was worthy of love, protection, and justice. And that sometimes, When the people who should protect you fail, you have to learn to protect yourself, and others who can't. 6 months later, our story had inspired legislation protecting disabled children from financial exploitation. Grace had started a non-profit helping women escape abusive relationships. Amara had returned to banking with a focus on preventing fraud. As for me, I continued nursing, but now I also spoke at conferences about recognizing manipulation and abuse. Our story had become larger than our pain. It had become a tool for protecting others. The last message I'd received from an unknown number read, "Mrs. Adebayo, your story saved my life. I was planning to end everything because of what my husband was doing to me and my autistic son. But seeing how you fought back gave me hope. We escaped safely, and he's been arrested. Thank you for showing us that survival is possible." Messages like that reminded me why the fight had been worth it. Why going public, despite the risk and embarrassment, had been the right choice. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to suffer in silence. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply refusing to let evil win. What an incredible journey of justice and survival. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to know they're stronger than they think. Don't forget to subscribe to Stories by Tino for more powerful true stories. And comment below with your thoughts on Kemi's amazing fight for justice. Remember, you are never alone, and there is always hope for a better tomorrow. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories of courage and survival.